Hi guys, welcome back. Last lesson we learned the 5 major open chord shapes, and today we're going to take those chord shapes and we're going to alter them, which pretty much we're just going to be adjusting them a little bit, adding a finger here, subtracting one there, to effectively make new chords and chord extensions. This is going to spice up your playing a lot and make it sound really cool, and best of all, it's practically effortless. If you learn the 5 major chord forms, it becomes real easy. So you're going to be able to make melodies with your chords, spice up your chord progressions, and make your guitar playing in general really cool without much effort. But let's get right into it. Alright guys, first let's look at some common alterations of a C major chord. In the last lesson we learned how to play the major open chord shape. That looks a little bit like this. And a common alteration here is simply to just take your first finger off to go from a C major chord to a C major 7 chord. And it sounds a little bit like that. Okay. You can hear the difference. And now, since we have a free pinky, we can try to put that pinky on the 3rd fret of the B string. And that is a C add 9, because that D note is the 9th chord of a C major scale. So if we play all 3 of those together, and the pinky can actually go on anywhere on the 3rd fret, so experiment with different strings and get some different sounds out of them. And also you can experiment with taking some fingers off, like we did with the C major 7 chord. We took the first finger off. If we put that back on, let's try taking the middle finger off while we strum. And then we'll try the pinky on. So you can kind of get an idea of what we're doing here. We're just taking fingers that we have free and putting them in weird places, or taking some fingers off. You're free to experiment however you like, and if you like how a chord sounds that way, then just store it for later. If you don't like how it sounds, then forget about it. And you can start writing songs and doing a whole bunch of cool stuff with it. So that's the C major. Next we're going to do the A major chord. We learned how to do the open major chord form in the last lesson. Some common alterations here are simply taking your ring finger off of the fretboard. So we have an A major here, and if we take our ring finger off, we get a sound like that. That's a A suspended 2nd, I believe. So let's hear how it sounds. That sounds pretty cool. Let's try taking a pinky and putting it on the 3rd finger, or I'm sorry, the 3rd fret of the B string, which is your 2nd string. And now let's try to do all of them at once. And that sounds pretty cool. I'm sure entire songs have been made with just one basic chord form and little alterations of that chord. So again, experiment. You can try taking different fingers off. I know if you take your middle finger off, you go from an A major to an A dominant 7. It's kind of jazzy. You can take your first finger off to get a suspended 4, I believe. And that sounds pretty cool. And you got a free pinky in there, so try some different stuff with your pinky there as well. That's the A major. Next we have D major. I know there's some common alterations a lot of guitar players use here, and I'm sure you're gonna, once you hear them, you're gonna instantly recognize them. Here's your your open major chord form of the D major. It looks like this. And again, you have the free pinky. So let's try putting that on the 3rd fret of the high E string, your 1st string. And now your middle finger, which is on the 2nd fret of the E string, let's just try taking that off of the fretboard. Let's try all 3. That sounds pretty cool. And if you wanted to finger pick something like that. That sounds pretty cool. Up next we have the E major chord, and the open chord form, or major chord form, looks a little bit like this. Sorry if my fingers are hiding it. There's quite a bit you can do here. Again, we have the free pinky. You can play around on the second fret here to get a kind of like an acoustic bluegrass feel a little bit. And even on the, you could try on the third frets too and get like a bluesier sound out of it. Something like that. You can take your first finger off and turn your E major into an E minor. You can take your ring finger off and turn it into an E dominant 7. That sounds pretty cool. And what I like to do a lot is I like to take my middle finger off of the fretboard to make an E suspended 4 chord, and then play around with the when it's off, I play around with the bass note down here on the second fret of the low E string, and then I'll play with the last finger too. Almost something like that. As far as the G chord goes, you know, especially in this chord form here, I'm using all 4 of my fingers, so there's not really a lot you can do with the chord itself. But what you can do, if you take your first 2 fingers off of the fretboard, you can kind of play around with the bass notes here. So let's try the 3rd fret of the A string, which is your 5th string. We'll go down to the 2nd fret of the A string. We'll go to open of the A string, and then we'll go 3rd fret of the low E. So let's try this. Okay, again, starting on the A string, 3rd fret, 2nd fret, open, 3rd fret of the low E string. Okay, and if you wanted to strum that or finger pick it, it'll sound a little something like this. And you can get a lot of mileage out of that too. That sounds pretty cool.